So what led you to initially want to start this research?
When I first started my PhD, I just knew I wanted to do something, and I wasn't sure what. One of the courses that I took had us doing a project, and I wanted to incorporate some education for teachers on the workplace safety and health rules and things, that how it applies to us in the classrooms and in the schools. And that led me to realizing, hang on, we're experiencing a lot of, at least I was experiencing a fair amount of violence or harassment in the classes throughout the day. And I was wondering, is this happening with others?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we started.
So you heard from almost 200 teachers as part of your research. What kinds of things did they tell you about how they feel about their safety in class?
Well, I really didn't look into the exact whys. I was right now in this research looking into, is it happening or isn't it, and what were they finding? There are definitely some patterns that we were seeing, is that 54% of teachers indicated they had experienced violence at least once during the 23-24 school year, and 47% experienced harassment in that same time frame. And most of it caused by students.
Can you describe a moment when you felt unsafe in class?
I've had it in a variety of schools and divisions I've worked with. I've experienced being hit, kicked, bit, spat on. Most recent experience, more severe experience I've had, is a grade 1 student who ended up attacking me after I had tripped on a overturned table that they had flipped over and were approaching me with a chair. I backed up to avoid the chair and tripped on the table, and he hit me, kicked me. I got scratches on my face, bruised ribs, and this was a grade 1 student.
And when a moment like that happens, I'm just curious, as an educator, like, where do you look for some type of support? And is it school to school, or do we have good policy in place to sort of deal with things? I know you're not here to talk about policy necessarily, but I'm wondering whether or not you look at your individual school when that happens then.
You do look to your school administrators for the initial support of what's happened and after it's happened. The school divisions and schools that I've worked with do have written policies that indicate what is to be done. Doesn't always seem to follow, depending on the situation. And so, I think that's where teachers are feeling a little frustrated sometimes, that it doesn't always seem to be the same across the board.
What does your research show? I know you didn't go extensively into it, but what did your research say about why violence is happening in classrooms?
We didn't go into a lot of the whys. I did provide some teachers some options of what they might think is causing this and some of the systemic contributing factors. And 59% indicated they felt the number of students with high needs integrated into the regular classrooms was leading to the violence.
What's the next step in the research for you, Julie?
At this point, I would like to look into the why it's happening and how can we make some changes.
And what do you hope that people think about this morning as they're hearing about the work that you've done and the responses that came back, sort of, at least from the nearly 200 teachers that you heard from and surveyed for part of your research here, about the fact that this is becoming normalized?
I really would like to get the message out to all school staff, whether it's teachers, educational assistants, custodians, administrators, anybody involved in the schools. If there's an incident that happens, please report it. That's step one, because the employer has a hard time dealing with something if it's not been reported. So even if you think it's minor, please report. And then I think as my idea behind this right now is to make sure that we start letting the public know that this is happening to our staff, and we need to start considering, how we behave in relating to our school staff.
How difficult is it, I'm just asking you now personally as a teacher, to sort of even grapple with this when obviously you want to do right by the students, but if you're facing the violence at the hands of students, it can become complicated quickly, and I suspect a lot of teachers might maybe that's why it goes unreported.
I know from personal experience that is the situation where you don't want to make things worse for the student, yet on the same time you want to get help for the student, and then you're sort of caught going, do I report it, don't I? We generally experience has said, I haven't seen any results when I report it, so why report it? So it really does become a what do I do situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the first thing we need to do is report. And even if nothing happens, we at least have done our duty.
Thank you very much for telling us about your work.
Thank you.
That's Julie Braaksma. She's a resource teacher in the Brandon School Division. We did reach out to the Manitoba Teachers Society for comment. They had in recent years published a similar report actually about violence in classrooms. In an email to CBC from MTS President Lillian Clausen, she says, quote, "The violence we're seeing in schools is not random. It is the result of chronic underfunding, unmet student needs, and classrooms stretched beyond capacity. Violence against educators should never be normalized, regardless of its source. When a teacher is assaulted, it's a serious workplace safety issue. It does not become less serious because the person involved is a student." The statement goes on to say from MTS, what we want to see is meaningful investment in prevention. More counselors, social workers, psychologists, special education services, trauma-informed supports, and de-escalation training, unquote. Always like to ask you after these stories if you want to weigh in, especially if you're an educator, 204-788-3205.